aka the radical linguist, was born in Philadelphia on December 7, 1928. He was inspired by his father's work as a Hebrew scholar. Noam Chomsky studied his work and began teaching linguistics in 1955. His teachings led him to formulate groundbreaking theories related to children's language development. Some of Noam Chomsky's known published work. His first was in February of 1957, called Syntactic Structures. In 1966, he published Aspects of the Theory of Syntax, Topics in the Theory of Generative Grammar, and Cartesian Linguistics, a chapter in the history of linguistic thought. Universal Grammar Theory. Chomsky believes that children will never require the knowledge to process an infinite number of sentences if the language acquisition mechanism was dependent on language input alone. The theory of universal grammar was proposed, suggesting that all children are born with the ability to acquire, develop, and understand grammar regardless of where or how they were raised, such as knowing the noun categories and verb categories. Universal grammar holds the grammatical information needed in order to combine categories of language, such as verb and nouns, into phrases. Children have the natural ability to combine nouns and verbs into the correct and meaningful order. Critical period of learning. The critical period in which children learn language the most effectively takes place between birth until puberty. Chomsky believes that children pass through a linguistic alertness stage where the ability to understand language has the capability to influence them during later periods of their lives, such as the ability to be multilingual. Language acquisition is the process that requires children to understand implicit rules that help spread the knowledge of language. Chomsky believes that language is used to express ideas, messages, and emotions. Therefore, it is subject to constant modification and revision by others. Children make up and use their own language until they become familiar with the proper ways to use words and sentences. Challenges to Chomsky's theory. Chomsky's views are different than others, such as behaviorist B.F. Skinner, who believed that language is the result of conditioning, and those of psychologist Jean Piaget, who thought that language acquisition is related to a child's cognitive development. Psycholinguists argue that categories such as nouns and verbs are biologically, evolutionary, and psychologically implausible. Opposing constructivist investigators argue to have a more gradual developmental process, such as morphology acquisition, in which morphemes are the smallest grammatical markers in language and can effectively alter words. Constructivists also believe that children are sensitive to patterns in language. How we can benefit from learning about Noam Chomsky's universal theory. We learn and understand how language is developed from a young age. We are aware of how children form grammar while in school. Teachers can implement the study of language in students by creating lesson plans to help encourage the development of language according to Noam Chomsky's theory.
Noam Chomsky's theory of language. First, a bit about the theorist himself. Noam Chomsky is an American philosopher, theorist, cognitive scientist, and linguist. Chomsky was born in 1928 and is currently 86 years old. He is widely known for his role in both linguistics as well as political activism. Chomsky describes the study of cognitive linguistics as the study of the language faculty of the human mind. The theory. Chomsky's theory is based on the idea that all children are born with the innate ability to learn any human language. Based on Chomsky's theory, all children have an LAD, otherwise known as a language acquisition device. The LAD's job is to encode into a child's brain the major principles of language and grammatical structure of the language. According to Chomsky, a theory of language should be known as a theory of competence. He believes once a full theory of competence is developed, then other cognitive abilities and performance will be integrated. Factors in his theory. First, he believes that all children have an optimal learning age. Between the ages of 3 and 10 is when children will learn to talk in its entirety and they will grasp fluency. Second, children do not need a trigger to learn a language. Language comes naturally. Parents do not need to coax their child to speak. Simply speaking around the child will help the child to produce a language on their own. Third, even if a child is corrected, they will still speak in the same way they spoke before they were corrected. My thoughts. After learning about Noam Chomsky's theory, I've come to several different conclusions. I do not agree with his theory in its entirety. I do believe there is an optimal age from which a child will learn language. I also agree with his theory in the sense that most children have an innate ability to learn any language. What I do not agree with him about is that children understand grammatical errors without being taught, and that children cannot be corrected in their speech. If children understood grammar and were never able to be corrected in their speech, teachers would never teach students language arts and writing skills. Conclusion. In conclusion, Noam Chomsky has been a huge help in developing a theory on linguistics and language development in children. Children have a born ability to learn any human language, and Chomsky demonstrates that in his theory of language development.